Good evening, my friends, and welcome to True Crime, the Bad Girl, the Playa, and Dangerous Dave. I hope everyone had a lovely Thanksgiving, and Christmas is only, 17 days away. And if you're tuning in for the first time, I am Benny Scala, a.k.a. the Playa, a.k.a. Benny the Jet, a.k.a. Ricky Ricardo, and that lovely lady you see on screen spent 28 years, breaking necks and cashing checks. She is the one and only Boston bad girl, Brittany Brown. Brittany, how are you on this glorious Monday evening?
Well, I'm doing fine, but I'm freezing. As you can see, I'm all bundled
Yeah,
up.
I see that. Yeah.
It's freezing
What's
here,
the
and
temp there?
it's like probably 20 degrees, but it says feels like 6.
Oh, geez. I could never understand that real feel thing. If it feels like 6, why isn't it 6? You know,
I totally agree.
it makes it's
I
78,
totally agree.
but it feels like it's 11. Yeah, I never could get that whole concept. But in this corner, or the other corner, is a man that sleeps with his pickle. And of course, I'm talking about Uncle Dave himself, Dangerous Dave Star. Dave, how are you? You look very Christmassy there with that hat.
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. I was down and out for about 4 days with a bad head cold, but I've roared right back. I got most of my Christmas shopping just about done. We got a great podcast tonight on Natalie Wood. I love Natalie Wood, and I have to say, I got to tell the truth. I love Robert Wagner as an actor, but he's a piece of shit as a human being.
Yeah. Same here.
But
same thing with Walken.
Yeah, but at the same time, the trial of Brian Walsh with Anna Walsh has consumed me. So I put my hand up and say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me, everybody.
Amen. Amen. We got a couple of people in the audience. My beautiful friend from Greece, 17 Cooper, and 2.0. And there's a JMB. I'm not sure who that is, but they know you, Brittany.
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. That is a big independent wrestling fan. Friend of mine. Yes.
Okie doke. Very good. All right. Well, for those of you in Radio Land, thanks for listening on Want Radio. They got what you want. We're also now available on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Podchaser, and Boomplay. And if you're tuning in for the first time, please like and subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it. And now we have a word from our sponsors, which one of them is Dangerous Dave. And then we'll get right to this great show. True Crime with the Bad Girl, the Playa, and the Stars is brought to you by the Burbrower Law Firm. Folks, if you've been injured in a car accident, please reach out to our good friend Adam Burbrower at the Burbrower Law Firm. Adam and his crew do things the right way with great results. Not only is Adam a great attorney, but the dude has framed pictures of Ernie the Cat Lad, the unpredictable Johnny Rods, and our very own Boston Bad Girl in his office. How cool is that? If you see Adam at the community pool trying to nail that elusive triple Lindy, you'll notice superstar Billy Graham tattooed on his back and Bret the Hitman Hart tattooed on his chest. This guy is not only the man of the hour, the man with the legal power, too sweet to be sour, he is also the excellence of elocution. Besides being a great guy, Adam is a true crime aficionado and an avid WWF historian. Who else can get you a great settlement while breaking down Mario Mancini's greatest matches? Well, that one's a quickie. Check out Adam at burbrowerlaw.com and follow him on Facebook. And don't forget to tell him that the Bad Girl, the Playa, and the Stars sent you. Well, last and by no means least, we have Uncle Dave's Sausage. True Crime with the Bad Girl, the Playa, and the Stars is brought to you by Uncle Dave's Sausage. Are you hungry? Hungry for something thick, juicy, and just a little bit naughty? Introducing Uncle Dave's Sausage, the only meat that knows exactly how to fill your buns. Whether you like it spicy, smoky, or just plain stuffed to the brim, Uncle Dave's got the girth, the girth of flavor you crave. Morning, evening, a quick nibble at 3 a.m. No shame, baby. Uncle Dave's Sausage is served 24/7 at the carnival, where the rides aren't the only things that go up and down. You might have been into fitness, but once you've had the Uncle Dave's experience, the only thing on your mind will be fitting this sausage in your mouth. Slide it between two warm buns, slather it in mayo, or Give it a good squirt of mustard if you're feeling frisky. Don't be shy. You know you want it. Everyone's lining up to take a bite. Even Grandma said it was the best thing to ever slap her in the mouth because nothing slaps you in the mouth quite as hard as Uncle Dave's sausage. So, folks, in the heat of the night or the light of the day, when your cravings for meat just won't go away, don't settle for Slim or some flimsy old link. Get Uncle Dave's sausage. It's thicker than you think. Available now only at the Carnival. Bring a friend or two. Uncle Dave's sausage. The sausage you can't say no to. Dave, do you have any holiday specials going on?
Well, we're working on that now in the Carnival. I've been so consumed. The Carnival. I know we've got this podcast tonight, but the Carnival. I just can't tell you how consumed I've been by this Brian Walsh trial. It's overtaken my mind. We were busy with Karen Reed, and we were busy with the Birchmore case. That I kind of neglected this case, although I knew it was there. And then once it ramped up, it's just overtaken me. So we've got to come up with some specials for Christmas. Maybe I'll add a new flavor.
There you go. That sounds like
maybe we'll put some pepper on the pickle. Who knows?
Yeah, why not? All right. Well, guys, tonight's case is something that has kind of baffled me for the last 44 years. Since I first heard about it. It's coming. Actually, we just celebrated the 44th anniversary, November 29th, 1981. Not really celebrate. Natalie Wood drowned while on a weekend boat trip to Santa Catalina Island. She had been on her 58-foot yacht named Splendor with her husband, Robert Wagner, fellow actor Christopher Walken, and boat captain Dennis DeVerne. Now, the death was ruled an accident despite some evidence to the contrary. The Bad Girl and I will take you through the facts of this case, which are fishy in more ways than one. And I'm going to apologize in advance for any strong language I use because I have some pretty strong feelings on this one.
Whoa, yeah. The player's going to be salty tonight.
He's going to cut some promos, yep.
So Natalie Wood was born Natalia Nikolavina. I hope I'm doing this justice, but I'm not sure. Zakharenko on July 20th, 1938 in San Francisco to Russian immigrant parents. Her mother, Maria, was a fiercely ambitious woman with a sharp vision for her daughter's future. From early on, she enrolled Natalie in ballet classes, and when a film shoot passed through the area, when Natalie was very young, orchestrated an introduction with a director, a move that led to Natalie's first screen appearance at about age 4. According to biographers, Maria was driven by not just ambition, but also by fear and superstition. A gypsy fortune teller once prognosticated that the girl would one day become famous. Ooh. And that she must beware of dark water, else she risked of drowning. That prophecy and her mother's own obsession became a grim undercurrent in Natalie's life. Her mother was said to have almost willed her into stardom, controlling every aspect of her early career, moving the family when necessary, coaxing, pushing, shaping Natalie's identity for Hollywood, and eventually leading the studio to refashion her name to the more marketable Natalie Wood. Behind the glamour, the pressure was immense. As a child actor, Natalie often saw her mother more as manager or protector than parent, and internalized an abiding sense that success demanded compliance, sacrifice, and silence. That fear of dark water instilled so young would later take on tragic resonance. By the late 1940s, Natalie was no longer just a child actor. She was a known face. Her first substantial roles came as a young girl in films like Tomorrow is Forever from 1946, starring opposite Orson Welles and Claudette Colbert. She had a starring role in the 1947 Christmas classic Miracle on 34th Street. She played Susan Walker, a precocious little girl whose well-meaning mother had raised her not to believe in Santa Claus. Wood went on to learn the studio lot life. Under California law, as a minor, she attended required schooling on set and was apparently a bright student, excelling academically, even while shooting films. Her transition to adolescent and teenage roles came smoothly. She became part of some of Hollywood's most iconic work. By age 16, she co-starred in Rebel Without a Cause in 1955, opposite James Dean. Yet behind the scenes, her life was complicated. According to author Suzanne Finstad, in her biography of Natalie Wood, Maria had pushed her daughter into a relationship with Frank Sinatra when Natalie was only around 15 or 16 years old.
Wow.
Finstad claimed that Sinatra's personal valet confirmed that the relationship was secret and deeply troubling because Natalie was underage. The valet's memoir recounts how Natalie was given singing lessons, quote unquote, at Sinatra's place, often alone, and how Sinatra allegedly tried to discourage any witnesses from telling what went on. Whether or to what extent the relationship was physically intimate remains disputed among biographers, but the implication was clear. The ambitions of her mother, the power dynamics of the era, and the vulnerability of a child thrust into an adult world all created a toxic and exploitive environment, casting long shadows over Natalie's early years. It was a heavy burden for someone still growing up, yet Hollywood still saw her face, her talent, her potential. Natalie Wood matured into a full-fledged Hollywood star. By the late 50s and early 60s, she had cemented her place among the era's brightest. Films like Splendor in the Grass earned her recognition and acclaim. And in 1961, she landed the coveted role of Maria in West Side Story, a movie that remains iconic decades later. Yet, despite the success and adoration, the old fears persisted, especially her lifelong dread of water. According to those who knew her, she was haunted by the superstition that her mother had embraced and terrified even of ordinary pools. The idea of open, dark water unsettled her deeply. Over time, she married, first to actor Robert Wagner in the late 50s, a union that would end in divorce, later to producer Richard Gregson, and tried to build some measure of personal life beyond the glare of Hollywood. But the trauma of her youth, the demands of fame, and the scars of exploitation never completely faded. By the early 70s, she was reunited with Wagner and the two remarried. After that, she largely stepped back from the frenetic pace of 1950s teen idol stardom, focusing on family life. But even as she tried to settle, the sea remained her ominous presence in her subconscious, a presence her mother's prophecy had promised would one day come true. In late November 1981, during a break from filming the movie Brainstorm, Natalie and Robert Wagner, along with their yacht's captain, Dennis Davern, and actor Christopher Walken, her Brainstorm co-star, took the yacht Splendor to California's Catalina Island for a Thanksgiving weekend getaway. According to later testimony, the evening involved dinner, drinks, and tensions. On the boat, Wagner and Walken reportedly argued. Some accounts say about Natalie's career and possible closeness between Natalie and Walken. Witnesses, including the captain, later claimed that Natalie and Wagner had an argument before she disappeared. Davern said that after the argument, Natalie went below deck. The last time Wagner saw her alive, she was in the bathroom fixing her hair, then shut the door. What happened next, no one can say with certainty. Sometime during the night, under circumstances still disputed, Natalie disappeared from the boat. At around 1:30 a.m. on November 29, 1981, Wagner and Davern reported her missing. The next morning, her body was found floating in the water off Catalina Island, about a mile from the yacht. She was wearing a flannel nightgown, a red down jacket, and wool socks. Nearby, the yacht's small inflatable dinghy, a Valiant dinghy belonging to Splendor, was beached on the rocks, with its ignition off, gear in neutral, and oars stowed, locked in place. The scenario that was accepted: Natalie, possibly intoxicated, had tried to secure the dinghy as it banged against the yacht, slipped on the swim platform, fell into the water, and drowned. The bruises on her body, including some superficial marks, were attributed to her struggling to climb onto the dinghy or reboard the boat before succumbing. Given her known fear of water and the odd detail of the dinghy's apparently locked state, some found the explanation troubling. But at the time, that was the death that was publicly accepted.
Yeah. Within about 2 weeks, the death was ruled an accidental drowning by county medical authorities. According to the autopsy by the then chief medical examiner, Thomas Noguchi, let me show a picture of this piece of shit. There he is. All right.
Cool.
Yeah. The cause was drowning, with contributing factors of intoxication and hypothermia. Her blood alcohol level was elevated, and she had a painkiller in her system, which authorities say might have impaired her balance and her ability to swim or get back on board. The bruises and the scrape on her cheek, though noted, were chalked up to potential injuries from falling overboard or trying to re-enter the dinghy. Whatever else might have happened that night, the official verdict offered closure: an accidental death. No further public investigation was pursued at the time. As far as many in the world were concerned, the brilliant star was gone. A terrible tragedy, but a tragic accident. Yet, the story did not end there. In 2011, the case was reopened by the Los Angeles County Sheriff Department after the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern, publicly stated that he had lied to investigators in 1981. He claimed that there had been a heated argument among those on board and that the account he originally gave to police was incomplete or false. According to Davern's later version, he heard raised voices, reportedly between Wagner and Walken, and saw Natalie and Wagner leave the salon or common area in agitation. He further alleged that Wagner was present on deck until the moment she went into the water. Perhaps most damning, Davern claimed that after Natalie disappeared, he was told not to turn on the searchlight, not to call for help, and that they should do nothing. A decision he now says was wrong. Gee, you think? As a result of these new claims and other leads, in 2012, the cause of the death on her death certificate was amended from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. Investigators over the following years interviewed new witnesses, some of whom said they heard shouting and a woman's voice, possibly cries for help, coming from the back of the boat late that night. One investigator, speaking in 2018, said that the account given by Wagner, who was the last to see her alive, did not match other credible witness statements. In that year, Wagner was publicly named a person of interest. Officials emphasized, however, that they lacked definitive evidence to declare the death a homicide. As one detective put it, we have not been able to prove this was a homicide, and we haven't been able to prove that this was an accident either. The truth, how Natalie Wood ended up in the water that night, remains unknown. There is something tragic, almost cruel, about the way Natalie's deepest fears, instilled in her as a young child, became entangled with her final moments. As a young girl, she had been told to beware of dark water. As a woman, She was known to be terrified even of swimming pools, and yet she was found drowned off a rocky California shore in a nightgown, a coat, and socks, miles from shore. The evidence and the stories don't align neatly. The dinghy's locked position, the out-of-place attire, the ambiguous bruises, the delay in calling for help, they all raise more questions than answers. Then there is the testimony of the captain, recanted decades later, that he and Wagner intentionally avoided taking basic rescue steps, that they delayed search efforts, that they did not turn on the lights, did not call the Coast Guard, and effectively left Natalie alone in darkness. The official investigation in 1981 was cursory at best, perhaps influenced by celebrity influence and a desire for a quick resolution. The ruling of accident closed a tragic chapter, but left open a far darker one of silence, suppression, and unanswered guilt. Natalie Wood's story is not just one of stardom and tragic death. It's a story of exploitation, fear, and betrayal. From the earliest days, her mother shaped and controlled her life, pushing her into an adult world before she was ready. From whispered teenage relationships with powerful men to the pressure of performance to deep-rooted phobias she could never shake. She gave the world unforgettable performances, but perhaps in doing so, she paid a price no child should, no woman should, the price of losing control of her own life. And then on that dark night in November 1981, the stage lights went dark. Whether it was a tragic accident, a dreadful mistake, or something darker we may never know. But few stories better illustrate how fame can mask suffering, how a life meant for the screen can end in silence, confusion, and unresolved grief. Well, what do you guys think? Ladies first?
Well, it seems very, very strange to me that somebody would be that afraid of the water that they would even have a boat. That's first. Second, to even go on a boat, even if it was somebody else's. I don't think I would do that if I was so afraid of the water. So I find that strange. However, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what happened to her. I do not believe it was an accident. I don't think it was a planned murder, but I do not believe what happened was an accident. I don't believe she fell overboard. I believe she was pushed, and I believe that it was deliberate, that no one called immediately for help. That is my opinion.
Dave?
Well, I think the first thing is they needed more cowbell on that boat. That's the first thing. Listen, going back to my disgusting youth, there's been many nights that I've been intoxicated, I've smoked weed, I was been fucked up. But if I'm sleeping with my wife or my girlfriend and they ain't next to me, I know they ain't next to me. I'm getting up to go look and see where they are. Okay? So I think Christopher Walken, if I'm not mistaken, was banging her. They were having an affair on the set of that movie.
That was rumored, but never proved. But yeah, it was rumored.
Well, that's what Robert Wagner was pissed off about. That's what I was on the impression, that he was pissed off because they were so close and they were having an affair on that set. And I think that, like I said, if you're laying in bed, we'll use Robert Wagner because that's his wife, and your wife ain't next to you, ain't you going to get up like, okay, maybe she's going to the bathroom? Well, after a few minutes, aren't you going to like get up and see where the hell she is? I know I would. That's just me. But I just think she was murdered. You don't, with the captain is a key witness here. I think Christopher Walken is a slippery snake in all this, hiding in the shadows. But that captain, he is the key to everything. And for him to come forward and actually tell everybody, tell the authorities he lied, and tell the authorities he didn't tell the truth, tells me that she was. I always felt she was murdered, anyways. I always felt that, anyways. But Robert Wagner, you know something? I love the guy as far as an actor. I mean, I loved him in Heart to Heart. I used to always watch that show. And you know, I think he just her sister. She has a sister, Natalie Wood, who had a lot to. Yeah, she had a lot to say about it. I can't remember everything she had to say about it, but I do believe she implicated Wagner in it, if I'm not mistaken. But what's the common denominator again in all this?
Alcohol.
Alcohol is the common denominator. And I believe that they went up when Christopher Walken went to sleep and the boat guy went to sleep. I think they both stayed up on the ship, and he was fucking in a rage, Wagner, because you know that's what I was in the impression. He thought they were having an affair, and they were so very close on that set of that movie, and I think he just lost it. And I don't trust the examiner, the medical examiner, because now you're going back, you know, to what was it, 81?
Right.
Yep.
You know, so I mean, look what goes on today with cops and medical examiners. Never mind back then. You know, I think he probably got a little payoff, and you know, I just don't think he really. I mean, how do you close a case in 2 weeks, anyways? How do you do that? Like, how does it close in 2 weeks? It's just it didn't reopen and then reopened.
Well,
that right there tells you
30 years
right
later.
there. That tells you something doesn't smell right.
Right.
You know, and me personally, I don't believe in getting remarried to the same person more than once because you're just asking for trouble.
Right.
But
I agree.
that being said,
Exes are for a reason.
Yeah. What do you think, Playa?
Well, so I listened to a couple of interviews by Dennis DeVerne, the captain, and now, who, by the way, has passed 2 polygraph tests. So, and Nancy Grace gave him the 3rd degree, and Nancy Grace can give you the 3rd degree. She's absolutely convinced he's telling the truth. But the way he said it was that night they went out to dinner. Well, actually, Walken and Natalie Wood went first. They went to dinner. And I guess Wagner and DeVerne, the captain, joined them, which I don't get in the first place. Why don't you all go together? But in any event, Wagner went into the restaurant and saw Natalie and Walken, you know, joking around, you know, looking really, you know, like they were having a great time. And I guess that infuriated him. And like you said, there were rumors, you know, going around that they, you know, something might have been happening. But, you know, Wagner was by no means ever a saint. Nobody will tell me that either. Right. But so what happened is after dinner, and they, like you said, alcohol, they drank. The 4 of them left that place, that restaurant, so shit-faced that I believe that the Coast Guard was notified about it, you know, just in case.
Oh.
But when they got back, they decided, you know, what else? You know, I'm gonna have a glass of wine. Like they really needed that, right? And so what happened was, I guess Wagner he grabbed a bottle of wine and he just smashed it on a table they had there. And Walken got up and I guess walked to his cabin. And then Natalie, they had like a big, I guess like a suite. Wagner and Natalie had a suite, and she walked to that. And DeVerne said to him, you know, maybe you should go apologize. Well, Wagner went down there, and it was because it was down. And then there was a door, and that actually led to the back of the boat. So DeVerne went up to the bridge. So he really did, because he really didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to hear them, you know, the 2 of them. And he said he heard very loud arguing, and he said it sounded very physical. It sounded like somebody was having a fight, you know, or like the bumping, and people were taking bumps, right? And apparently he went back down and he knocked on the door, and Wagner opened the door just like a crack, and he said, "Go away." And DeVerne said he did not hear or see Natalie. So he went back up to the bridge, and then he noticed all of a sudden all that loud arguing. And there's people on other boats that have corroborated this, that they heard the loud arguing, to the out the back of the boat. That all of a sudden it got quiet, and he went back to check again, DeVerne, and now at this point, Wagner is leaning against the back of the boat, and all he's saying is, "Natalie's missing. Can you look for her in the boat?" Which he said he was very calm about it too. So he goes and looks everywhere, and it's nowhere. He says, "Well, I'm going to put the searchlight on, and I'm going to call the Coast Guard." And Wagner told him, "No, we're not going to do that." And DeVerne was like incredulous, and they asked him, like, "Well, why didn't you do anything about it?" And he said, "Look, I was 20-something years old. This is friggin' Robert Wagner, one of the biggest stars in Hollywood." He said, "I felt like yay big next to this guy, plus Walken. These are like mega stars. I'm a little pissant boat captain." And he was an employee. He was paid to drive that boat by Robert Wagner. That's all he was, really. He was an employee of the family. And he said, "Well, I just felt like," he said, "I also felt like this guy, how do I know he's not going to snap on me too?"
Exactly.
Right? So, yeah. But yeah, he was told not to call the Coast Guard, not for several hours. Finally, I guess he acquiesced, and not even to turn on the searchlight. This is your wife. She all of a sudden is missing, and it's not a matter of hours; it's a matter of minutes. And you're telling them not to turn on the searchlight? Like, are you
That's
crazy?
nuts.
No, and DeVerne noticed that the dinghy, because Wagner said that he thought maybe Natalie came out to fasten the dinghy, which is absolute utter bullshit. Because number one, that's DeVerne's job, and number two, he testified that, or he told police, he said, "I tied that thing very secure before we even had that glass of wine. So that thing was tight. It didn't need to be fastened anywhere." So yeah, I mean, it's like everything, and what else? I'm trying to think here. Like, there's so many thoughts.
Well, Jason brought up a good point, because Jason just rattled something in my head, because I remember back then, wasn't Robert Wagner having an affair with the woman he would marry? He's been married to her to this.
Jill St. John.
Jill St. John. Yep.
He's still married to her to this day, isn't he?
Right. But I mean,
Yeah.
now, all right, we were talking before, and Brittany, you made a good point about, like, if you're afraid of the water. I mean, I'm horrified of flying, but I know that I'd rather spend 3 hours in an airplane than 2 days in a car. So what I do is I get to the airport, an hour and a half early, and I have my 5 or 6 glasses of wine, my liquid courage, and I'll get on the damn plane. Usually, at this point in my life, I'll fall asleep during the flight, but there's no way I'm going to go into the cockpit, or I'm going to, like, stick my, like that thing right by the bathrooms that has that lever. I'm not going to hang on that lever. I'm staying as far away from everything as possible. There is no way that Natalie Wood would have went anywhere remotely near that dinghy, even if it was banging against the boat. I mean, the night before that, which Friday night, because it happened on Saturday night, Friday night, she and Wagner argued because Wagner wanted to move the boat to the deserted part of the island, which was also kind of fishy. And she didn't want to do that because the waters were kind of rough. And they had a big argument, so much so that she had DeVerne take her on the dinghy to the island, and she stayed in a hotel. Now, she rented 2 rooms, one for her and one for DeVerne. But apparently I don't think that anything happened. I think it was more of like, her crying on his shoulder.
Yeah.
But so obviously, if she needed help, if she was worried about that dinghy, she would have said, "Hey, Dennis, can you fasten it down?" Which never happened because the thing was already fastened.
Right.
But I mean, she was also, this is an A+ list movie star. You're not going to go on a dinghy wearing a flannel nightgown and wool socks.
No way.
I'm sorry. This lady would not have been seen in public like that. There's no way.
Nope.
And She had no knowledge. She couldn't have untied that boat. She wouldn't have known how to start it. She wouldn't have known how to steer it. So why would she have gotten in that boat? I mean, it's
Exactly.
And there were 39 bruises on her body.
Whoa.
How do you get 39 bruises? Just slipping. And the other thing that I learned this today is the autopsy, she had a full bladder. Now, if you're, there's expression, you get so scared you're going to pee your pants. All right.
Yep.
Well, if she didn't pee her, if she had a full bladder, my theory is Wagner knocked her out. Right when he walked down to when DeVerne said you need to go apologize to her. I think he went down there and he clocked her, and then he because she had abrasions on her face and she had like fingerprint marks on her ankles. So I'm thinking he picked her up by the ankles, dragged her to the side of the boat, and just did the heave ho.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, and this really tells me what a piece of shit this guy is. What a fucking asshole that he would not go identify the body. Him and Walken were helicoptered off the island back to Los Angeles, and he had DeVerne, the captain, go identify her body. What husband would do that?
Well, I think at this time, because Jason is right. I think at this time, he was checked out, Robert Wagner, because he was with this Jill St. John. Is that her name?
Yep.
Yep. He was with her, I believe, by this time. And I think he wanted out of the marriage. And I think he wanted to be with her, which he's been with her ever since, I believe. Wow.
I think that's a good comment by Tori. So her and Espo on the boat.
Well, I'll tell you one person you can trust. That's Espo. Don't have to worry about that.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I'll pass on that one. I'll go on the boat with somebody else.
No, but I mean, how horrible is it that you don't even, I'm out of here. You can go identify her. That's your wife. They had been together for 9 years. I think the first one went from 57 to 62. It lasted 5 years. She got married very young. She was 19 the first time. But I just that really, really, and then the fact that DeVerne.
I'm going to tell you something. If I'm married, I don't care. And I'm on a boat. I'm married. I don't care where I am. If I'm married and I get in an argument with my wife is sleeping next to Uncle Dave's sausage. That's it. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And if she ain't there next to Uncle Dave's sausage, I'm coming to look for you.
Maybe a little pickle for a change of pace, though. What do you think?
Yeah, well, a little Gertrude pickle. Who knows?
A little jerk in there,
Yeah, but I'll tell you, and if you ain't next to me, especially if I'm on a boat where there's 2 other guys, I'm going to come look for you. You know what I mean? So, yeah. The first time I saw Natalie Wood was when my mother put on West Side Story. That's the first time I saw Natalie Wood.
So talented, so beautiful, Maria. I didn't even know that she was in Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean.
Wasn't her name Maria?
Yeah, she was.
Wasn't
her
name
17.
Maria? Wasn't that her name in West Side Story, Maria?
Maria in West Side Story, but Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean. I got that right. Is it Rebel with a Cause or Without a Cause? I know it was in 1955. She would have been 17. James Dean was the hottest thing in Hollywood. The co-star next to James Dean, you're in the big time. So she was an A-lister at a very early age, and she was like movie royalty. She got all the great spots. She was immensely, immensely talented. But yeah. I mean, it just bothers me that this piece of shit is still alive. And I mean, I think the good thing for him is that he's an actor. I think every time I hear him talk about this, he's performing.
I agree.
I really haven't seen him I haven't really seen a picture of him. He hasn't done anything in years, I don't believe. Has he?
I know.
I don't even know what he looks like today.
He will be 96. In January.
Wow.
All I can say is, when he passes away, there's a judge that money can't buy. And
That's right.
I think there'll be a different outcome for him. But
I wish I could remember what her sister had a lot to say about it.
Her sister thinks that he did it. I don't think that Walken had anything to do with it, but I think Christopher Walken knew or knows a lot more than he's ever said. Shame on him. I mean, to me, this case is solved. It's just, it's not resolved. I mean, I know who did it. I just, the guy's not going to get any justice, though.
Yeah, sometimes you know what? Sometimes you're a slippery snake that can just about smart enough to get away with it, and he got away with it that night. I'm surprised nobody on the other boats didn't see anything. Like hearing her, I don't know how far the boats were from his boat, but hitting her or throwing her. Maybe she jumped into the boat to get away from him. Maybe he was beating her so bad, that she had to get away from him.
Yeah, but I mean that whole bladder thing. I think if she had a full bladder and they had been drinking nonstop, I think just out of pure fear for her life, she would have peed herself. I think he cold-cocked her and knocked her out, and then he thought, all right, well, I got to dispose of the evidence here. I mean, he was, you got alcohol, and then you have like insane jealousy. Now, I also heard a rumor though that he might have been a switch hitter, and I'm wondering if maybe like that came up in the conversation that I might go public with that, and maybe that infuriated the guy.
And you don't know what else they were doing either. Maybe some of the white powder, who knows? Some lines, some cocaine, some whiskey. It's Hollywood. They're just because they're Robert Wagner, Christopher Walken, and Natalie Wood doesn't mean they're not immune to that stuff. Who knows what was on that? Who knows what was on that boat?
Yeah,
but true. Jason's right. Robert Wagner was in Austin Powers. He was in there. Didn't he wear the eye patch? Didn't he wear the eye patch?
Right. Yeah.
I thought he was. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he got slippery fucking snake. Got into that movie.
He did, to his credit, he aged very well. I mean, I've seen recent pictures of him, and obviously he's you can tell he's getting on there, but yeah, he lives in Colorado with Jill St. John. I don't know how long they've been married for, but and now him and Natalie did, I believe, have a daughter from the second time they married, and I haven't really heard anything about her. I think her name is Courtney.
And I think she had some daughters also with Gregson.
Yes, yeah, they had a blended family, yeah, because I think Wagner had some kids too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, imagine what they must think. I wonder. I really wonder.
Wagner's a heel. I think the mother was a heel too, because I think the mother almost kind of pimped her out. Whatever it took for her to get famous, the mother was going to do. And I mean, I don't know what happened between her and Frank Sinatra. Sinatra. I mean, what kind of vocal lessons was she getting?
Yeah, maybe he was teaching her how to goggle.
Yeah, how to clear her throat. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that had something to do with it, but I mean, I hope not. I really hope that didn't happen. But I mean, it's just kind of
Look what Jerry Lee Lewis
got her wish as far as the fame, and it's scary that that prophecy of the drowning that's really eerie.
That is, especially when it was said to her so young, and like this being held over her head for decades, and then look what happens to her.
Right. So he and Natalie Wood had a daughter.
Correct.
One daughter. One child. No other kids.
Yeah, I mean, they got remarried in 1972, and this happened in 81. So somewhere between those, I don't know when she was born, but sometime in between, I believe.
Okay, so she was born. She was born the second time they got married.
Correct.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, she's not going to say nothing because sometimes, hey, you look what happened to, Jerry Lewis's kids when they opened their mouth. That was.
I know.
mean, that's a horrible human being. In all those years, I loved Jerry Lewis. I'd watch that telethon Labor Day every single year as a kid. I'd go out and collect money for muscular dystrophy, mail it in. And what a horrible piece of shit he was.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe she doesn't want to speak up because she doesn't want to lose the inheritance,
Exactly.
But I wonder, like, Robert Wagner though, on his deathbed. You know how you have these deathbed confessions? I wonder if he'll do it then.
Nah, I don't think he really cares today. I don't think it's really a issue with him. He's been married for many, many years. He's living a good life. He got away with it. I don't think the captain, they tried to get him back in 2011 and the slippery snake got away again.
Again,
I don't
yep.
think I don't think he really cares. I think he's living the good life. And
I mean, it depends what you believe. If you believe there's no afterlife, then yeah, I mean, he's going to just ride this one out. If you do believe there's an afterlife and you're going to be held accountable for what you did on Earth, I wouldn't pass away with that on my conscience. I know I wouldn't.
I mean,
that's awful.
I would like to hear from his daughter. I don't know if has she ever made any statements about it?
I don't believe so.
No.
Nor has Walken. Robert Wagner, he's been asked to speak to the police, and he's refused.
Yeah.
He refused.
Yeah.
He will not talk about it. Walken's never talked about it. Well, I think he might have. But now that was the other thing, though. When DeVerne got back from identifying the body and got back to Wagner's residence in Hollywood, Wagner's lawyer was there, and they went over like, this is what the story is. And I don't know if Walken was there or not, but I think they said, Christopher was going to be told the same thing. This is the story. So they had, it's like a WrestleMania. It was all scripted. This is going to be the storyline. We have to stick to it. And they even got DeVerne his own lawyer. And you are not to deviate from this story. And that's why I guess, the story, maybe the police bought it because, if they interviewed all three of them separately and they had the exact same story, well, it must be true. I don't understand this Noguchi guy though. Like you see 39 bruises on a woman, like, these marks on the face. You got them down on your ankle. How do you get bruises on your ankles?
I know.
I like to know what the funeral was like, because to me, by sending that boat captain to identify the body, that's telling me he's guilty. In other words, he don't want to go look at what he did. That's what it tells me. Like, he don't want to go look at what he did. That he sent the boat guy. What a coward.
What a coward. Yeah.
What a coward. So I'm wondering, what was the funeral like back then? I'll have to look that up. I've been consumed. I'm sorry, people out there, with the Brian Walsh case, which we're going to talk about next week. But I'm going to have to go when we hang up and go research the funeral, because was he a coward and didn't go to the funeral?
No, I believe he did. And he even wrote a memoir. I think it's called Pieces of My Heart. And he talks about, and he did do an interview, and all he would say is, I failed her. I wasn't there for her. And I'm thinking, you're just doing a fucking performance. This is an acting gig to you. It's not your wife. He's
the thing with him is he's so believable. If you're gullible, he's so believable because he's so handsome and debonair, and what's the word I'm trying to use? He's
suave.
He can, what's that word? Playa?
Suave.
Yeah, he's just debonair. He's just, he could talk his way out of a snake pit. You know what I mean? To the snakes. He's got
he's very well spoken. He's got that, he's got that actor's voice. He's very, like you said,
but he's got that swagger to him that, you could go into a police station and sit there and give an interview and the police are going to be memorized. These are larger than life people. Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken in 1981. These are like mega stars. And you've got to believe, like, that's the captain, DeVerne was totally, that's when they said, why didn't you do anything?
He said, I was 20-something years old, and this is Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken. What am I going to do? You know, who are they going to believe?
I know.
You know,
Right.
so, and
He does have a
literally,
point there.
for the whole, at least it was a year, he said that he lived in Robert Wagner's house. He was he was not allowed to go by himself. He wasn't allowed to go anywhere by himself. So, I mean, if it was an accident, why would Wagner give a shit? You know,
Exactly.
You obviously have something to hide. And yeah, I mean, he went to go visit his girlfriend, the Vern, and he got escorted by one of Wagner's bodyguards. And after an hour, they said, okay, it's time to go home. And he goes, no, I'm hanging out with my girlfriend. No, it's time to go home. And they dragged him out after an hour. He was totally at Robert Wagner's whim. And I'm sure Wagner was paying him too.
Because he didn't want him to go to the police. He was still what do you call he was still paranoid was the word, Robert Wagner. That's why he had this guy followed. And that's why he wanted to know where this guy was. He didn't trust him. He thought he was going to go to the police and spill the beans. To be honest with you, when you look at this case from afar, it's very. I'm so positive within a shadow of a doubt he killed her and threw her overboard onto this boat or whatever he did. Without a doubt.
He threw her overboard, period. And then he didn't even. I don't think he threw her on the dinghy. I think he threw her overboard, and then he loosened the dinghy, and so to anybody it would appear that she tried to get in this dinghy and obviously did not succeed. But there was no way this lady would have came within 100 feet of that dinghy by herself.
I agree.
If she did want to leave, excuse me. If she did want to leave, thank you. If she did want to leave, she would have said, "Dennis, take me," like she did the night before. Take me back to the island. That's all. And I mean, you think she's going to go in wool socks and a flannel nightgown? It's fucking Natalie Wood. Like you're going to
absurd.
Yeah, she would not have been seen in public like that. There's no way. I mean, unless there were spottings before this of Natalie Wood and flannel nightgown and woolen socks, which there wasn't. That lady was always dressed to the nines with makeup and her hair done, and she had an image to keep up.
That's right.
It's almost absurd as of waking up next to your dead wife and dismembering her and saying you didn't kill her.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I know.
Well, speaking of that, Dave, why don't you update us on that case that you've been following? Because that's going to be our next case.
Oh, that fucking piece of shit. I feel so bad for the 3 little kids they had. Listen, there's nothing that you can't walk away from. There's nothing that's so big and so complicated you can't walk away from. And, those we're talking about Brian Walsh and Anna Walsh. It's the case is going on now in Dedham Court, where the Karen Reed case was in Dedham. And, it's just, I've been watching these. I've seen the pictures for the first time of the 3 kids. And they're in state care now. And I watched this piece of shit day after day sitting in that courtroom. And I can't figure it out. Maybe people out there in podcast land can give me some reasons. But I'm watching this piece of shit day after day. They're showing all these, slides from the state forensic lab, blood on all the clothes. They found, I don't really want to get into it because we're going to get into it next week. But they're showing slides of bloody rugs and bloody slippers. And he's just sitting there, laughing and like couldn't be bothered. And you ain't never going to see the light of day again. I don't know what he's thinking, but what are these people, like what's going through your mind when you're sitting there? He's sitting there, the tablet's in front of him. He's watching everything that we're all seeing at home up on the screen. Like, what's going through your mind? Like, your kids.
I think he believes he's innocent.
I even think like Robert Wagner. I bet, like at this point in his life, I bet after all these years, he's convinced himself that he is innocent.
I agree.
After 45 years, or 44 years rather, I think he's convinced himself that it was an accident.
Well,
People can do that. It's weird.
Well, it's like George Costanza told Jerry Seinfeld, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Right.
You know? Remember, I don't know if anybody saw that episode. It's not a lie if you believe it. You know?
Well, the only person that's taken a polygraph was DeVerne, the captain, and he did pass 2 times. So to me, what he says is credible. And I mean,
agree.
Yeah. And I saw a show where it was Nancy Grace and another, I think she was a forensic investigator. And they literally they built a diagram of this yacht, like with an overhead view. And they traced all the movements and, based on DeVerne's story. And it made 100% sense, even, as far as like him striking her in that master suite. And if he knocked her out and he just grabbed her and dragged her like up to the, right. It wasn't that long of a walk to the edge of the boat. And, but I mean, how your own wife, your other half, you're grabbing her by her ankles and dragging her where her face is actually hitting the floor of the boat. Oh. They said that's the only way they could explain the abrasions on the face, the way they were, the way they happened.
We need more cowbell.
This sounds like a specific.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he'll never get indicted. I don't think. And unless unless he does a deathbed confession, he's going to die getting away with murder. It's so sad.
Yep.
The only good part about this, the only good part about all that was because I look to the kids, and the only good part is at least the daughter made it through. I don't know what she's like today. I don't know if she's fucked up in the head today, but at least she made it through. And did you say, Brittany, she has her own kids too? The daughter?
She might, but no, what I had mentioned was that Natalie also had some daughters with her second husband in between the 2 marriages to Wagner. So there are some half sisters as well.
Oh, have they ever spoken out about it?
I don't think so.
No. Very, very suspicious, huh? Yeah, money changes everything, as Cindy Lauper
sure
saying
does.
about.
Very, very true. Yeah, I would think the daughter is probably anywhere between like her mid 40s, and I don't think she was very, very young because they didn't mention that. Natalie Wood passed away in 81. I don't think the kid was like 1 or 2. She was probably like 6 or 7, so probably close to 50 now. So I would imagine she got probably has her own adult kids by now.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see what their opinion is.
No,
I know.
I believe Lana's still alive. Lana is in her early 80s, the younger sister. And she is very outspoken that there's, especially the fact that there is no way that Natalie would have gotten anywhere near that dinghy to do anything. And really, that's the whole question. So if she didn't, then how else would she have gotten overboard?
Exactly.
This isn't Goldie Hawn in the movie Overboard, where she's trying to get her diamond ring and then she, slips. That's not what happened.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But it was made to look like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
Right.
So to speak.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thanks as always to everyone in the live chat. Mrs. P, 2.0, Jason, Tom Jones. A few others, if I forgot you. JMB, you said the indie guy. JMB 01550. So isn't that Massachusetts somewhere?
Yes.
015? Yeah, I used to work in the mailroom. I can't forget that stuff. So, and if you guys have not subscribed, please like and subscribe. We need the subscribers. Don't forget to check out Brittany every Saturday from 1 to 5 on Funland Radio. 4 hours of great tunes. And me, Benny the Jet, at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoons. Same thing. I play a lot of 60s, 70s, and a little bit of 80s. So for the bad girl, Brittany Brown, and Uncle Dave, a.k.a. Dangerous Dave Starr, this is the one and only Playa telling everyone to stay safe. And we will see you next crime. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Denise. Good night, Mrs. P.
Yes, good night, Mrs. P and Denise and everyone else.
Brian Walsh next week. Great show next week. Join us, Brian Walsh.
Bye-bye.